Hi, everybody. Today we're talking about gamification. This is our first gamification masterclass. That's very exciting. It's the first time we're going to be talking about gamification on a very specific level, making sure that we have a really good foundation of what gamification is and how it works to hack our brains, to do what we want. One big thing that I'm going to be talking about in today's class is really focusing on the idea that our attention is really being stolen by, media, by games, by, the internet is definitely a huge part of it. And why they're incentivized to do it, what they do, what outcomes they get out of that, and then how they go about it. And the intention behind this education is to make sure that you know exactly the ways that we are being taken advantage of by, again, these corporations. And knowing exactly the principles behind how they do it will make it very practical for us to apply it for ourselves if we wish to hack ourselves in the same way. And throughout this course, throughout this class, I'll be guiding you through the understanding of how you can essentially transfer a first principle idea, right? A first principle, if you're not familiar, is an idea broken down into its fundamental parts, and then using that fundamental principle to then make something entirely new out of it. And that's basically the idea of how the gamification project started and how you can now hopefully learn the principles to apply it into any system you'd like, whether it be a paper plan or whether it be a Notion document or even just any kind of system you want. I know some people in this call have tried to build their own system before as well, whether it be on an Excel spreadsheet or on a custom app. And there's just many, many different ways you can do it. And I want to make sure that you know that there's always more than one way to solve a problem. Great. So what you see here is actually just, I guess, one of our early drafts of the book that's I'm hoping to publish by the end of the year. It's going to be about practical gamification, and really the whole idea is, like I mentioned, making sure that gamification isn't just this word you hear out there, and rather something that you can apply in everyday life. And one of the core principles that I want to share here as well is that this is something that it can be applied anywhere, anytime, as long as you have the time and attention to learn the skill, and also if you want to really have control over what triggers you instead of just being reactive to what other people want you to be triggered by. So without further ado, let's jump straight in. And if the text gets a bit small, just let me know, but I will be elaborating on the words and explaining things. And of course, if you guys have things to ask, have questions to ask, there's a raise your hand button in the chat, or beside the chat rather, on the bottom left. And if you ever do that, just sit tight. When I finish my point, I'll get to you and I'll answer your question. So very happy to make sure everyone's questions are answered in this live session and make sure that everyone has a good understanding of what I'm trying to teach. Okay, great. So the first chapter on in this book, and also in what I'm teaching today, is a fight for your attention. And essentially the idea is that everything on the internet, games, and media is trying to get your time, and here's the strategies that they employ. And I came across this really, really interesting Netflix special by Bo Burnham, if you are familiar with the comedian and songwriter. He's also an actor now, I believe, and producer. But essentially, he's just this modern age comedian that does a lot of very honest takes about real life. And something I noticed, and this might go on a bit of a tangent, but something I noticed about just comedy in general is that they often provide you a very unique outlook on life, a commentary on life, if you will, that you really don't notice or don't take so seriously if there isn't a comedic element involved. And I always thought that was really interesting. So why I reference Bo Burnham in this is because he recently came out with a Netflix special that he shot, directed, and produced all from his home during lockdown period. He's in the US, and he has this really powerful song inside the special where it's talking about welcome to the internet. And it's really catchy. I do recommend you watch it if you're curious, but the whole pitch of it is just basically, commenting on how the internet is trying to interest you in anything and everything all of the time, right? And it's almost like apathy is something that needs to be thrown out the door. Everything on the internet wants you to be enraged, be happy, be sad, have a roller coaster of emotions, right? And boredom is something that we can't have anymore, right? And I don't know about you guys, but sometimes when I go to, just buying groceries, waiting in the line, going to the washroom, whatever it might be, there's this urge to pick up my phone with me and make sure that it's there with me and I'm engaging with something outside of my primary objective, which at the time could be anything at all, right? But the sad part is, I think, is that we've grown accustomed to this this sucking of energy, this information overwhelm from all these different locations, again, whether it be media, news outlets, games, and we take it almost for granted, or not taking for granted, but rather we don't end up understanding that this is actually something we can control. So something that I want to really hammer down on is, all these different outlets that I just talked about, they're being paid enormous sums to steal your attention. This is their job. And obviously, if something is someone's job, then they're going to spend their full efforts on it. They're going to ensure that they put all their time and attention researching, hiring psychologists, doing studies on their consumers, very blatant and predatory marketing, anything that they can do so that they can essentially gather your data, gather your attention, and sell it to the highest bidder. And the idea about this is that I think if you look back 20, 40, even 50 years ago, it wasn't as big of a problem because that trigger hasn't been unlocked yet. The code hasn't been unlocked yet on exactly how attention can be captured. But right now, the people behind the ad agencies and behind the content that we digest are really stealing our attention in very heinous ways that I think are very detrimental for us in the long term. They make us feel anxious all the time, make us feel uncertain, and it's almost like if we don't always follow everything that's happening, we're missing out, and we have a dependence on them, almost like that, right? There's always cliffhangers at the end of TV shows. We binge TV shows all the time, right? Like, all these things are ways that other people are controlling us to do their bidding, and the question is, what can we do to make sure that we're doing our own bidding? What can we do to make sure that we're working for ourselves and not working for others? Okay, so it's a big industry, right? $600 billion is only the advertisement industry. And on top of that, you have the, movies, TV shows, gaming industry. I'll probably update that number, but it's at least 600 billion, okay? And the whole thing is, and I'm sure you'll laugh along with me on this, where whenever we open an application, and maybe today's, people open up TikTok, in the past, maybe it was more Instagram, maybe more Facebook, YouTube definitely is one for all of us, I'm sure. We get a whole roller coaster of emotions. Oh, look, there's this, very intense strategy happening. Oh, look, you look like you need this product. Oh, look, there's a cute cat. You better watch this video. Get rich with this one weird trick. There's always these things that just jump at you, and you always feel like there's something that you could be paying attention to and something you're missing out on. And this is where I want to educate you. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time here and start a more meaningful discourse here as well, meaningful conversation, because I think we need to really be educated on how we're being taken advantage of, and what are the different strategies that are being imposed upon us. So the first one is a sense of progression. And basically, I want you guys to imagine, a social media platform that you use. And I think Facebook is probably one that's, everyone can relate to, if not Instagram or Twitter or TikTok, just something that you participate in quite frequently. And you'll know that there's always some kind of liking mechanism, some kind of follow mechanism, some kind of subscribe mechanism. when you ever do something that's essentially the platform deems to be favorable, right? If you're attracting new people to come in, you're racking a lot of views, right? Then people like them, people follow them, subscribers. All these ways are the ways that the platform essentially give you a sense of progression that, hey, when I first came on this platform, when I had my first photo that I posted, I only got 5 likes. Now I got 10 likes. Now I got 15 likes. Now I got 20 likes. And I know that I'm essentially getting better and better at capturing attention from others, whether for whatever reason you might want. We'll talk about that more later on. But for the most part, the moment you engage on a platform, you're awarded for what makes sense for the platform's top line rather. So what happens is, though, that this creates a level of dissatisfaction with all other senses of progression in everyday life. If you think about it, when I'm in a career, getting a promotion takes time. It's not immediate. Getting a promotion will take, between 1 to 3 to 5 to 10 years. And it will continuously be a process where you don't get immediate gratification. But on these applications, we're getting immediate gratification all of the time, right? The moment we post something, we're going to get instant feedback, whether it's a like, a comment, a subscriber, whatever it might be. Something happens immediately and we feel, good about that. If you think about school even, we don't get tested until we have our midterms, our final year of end of year exams. We don't get like in normal everyday life, gratification doesn't come so easily. So having a sense of progression that's being delivered in this format becomes really, really exciting, right? And here where I go to point number 2, and point number 2 is where I think there's an enormous injustice done to us, where we get our primal fears are highly, highly heightened, right? All our problems are being brought to the surface, and it's almost like all our problems are screaming at us all the time. So for example, if we go onto Instagram and we are following, fitness gurus or fitness people that do fitness a lot, all we get amplified on is, hey, everybody looks so good and I don't look so good, or everyone's going on vacations and they're on a private yacht and I'm not on a private yacht. We're essentially always being triggered to we're being preyed on our most primal fears, the fears of missing out, the fears of being unloved, the fears of being, poor, all these different fears are essentially amplified and being taken advantage of so that they can essentially, at the end of the day, sell you their product that is going to give you this one trick that's going to solve all your problems. And I think that's very heinous. That's very upsetting, especially because sometimes you might not even think you have a problem until you go online and you realize, hey, my life sucks compared to all these guys. But we don't understand that it's a highlight reel, right, of everyone's best self. And again, if you think about it, 50 years, 20 years ago, all this was very well crafted in advertisement messages, right? In an advertisement message, they essentially are able to come together and, put a very well crafted story of this amazing person that's doing amazing things. And there's a sense of disbelief, right? There's a distance between you and that celebrity, and that you're not essentially that celebrity that's out there and that's displaying their best life, and that there's a level of distance that you can have between you guys. But right now, why it's extremely potent is because we see people, seemingly everyday people, living an amazing life that we don't feel like we have, right? Because we see the good and the bad. And that's where I think, our happiness ends up getting affected way more than it should be. The third thing I want to talk about is consistency, right? So there's always tactics for engagement, for continuous engagement. I mentioned before, just a bit earlier, where we have our TV shows that are cliffhangers, right? We essentially watch a TV show or even news. Let's talk about news. TV shows is a given, or books are a given, right? They keep you in tune for the next episode. But news nowadays even say, hey, after this ad break, we'll talk about X, right? And they give you like a very alarming headline, something emergency has happened. But wait, we'll talk more about this after this break. Like, Why, right? And the answer is because they need to keep you engaged. They can't tell you the full story, otherwise you'll leave. And they need to make sure that you stay on their channel and don't tap out and watch their ads and all those things. So, and for anybody who remembers like Facebook, right? Do you remember pokes? There was this whole thing where you poke your friend and they poke you back and you bring up a poke streak. If you just use Snapchat at all, Snapchat has a snap streak, right? Like all these things are ways that these applications try to keep you engaged. And if you played games, I think they're the best way to illustrate this too. Games have a daily engagement, right? You daily login reward, you log in and you get something good, and you're in the game anyway, you might as well go and play the game. Maybe you have a reward for the first win of the day. Maybe you have a reward for doing a specific daily quest. These are all ways that they help you continuously engage in what they're trying to, their main objective, right? And then the last thing I'm going to talk about before I get you guys to share some of your ideas on this is social engagement, right? All these apps give you a sense of belonging, a feeling that people that also subscribe to that platform are part of your tribe. I can find my own pocket or my own community of people anywhere I want now. At least that's the way I feel, right? Because of these applications that, hey, the moment I search up something on Instagram, cats, immediately I'm going to get cats shoved down my throat from now on. Every time I go on my feed, cat pictures are going to show up, right? There's algorithms in place that essentially continuously feed us information that the system thinks we need. And because of that, we keep seeing creators and content creators that create things that we like, and we essentially end up feeling like we belong. And again, the downsides of that, which I think may be not so obvious, but you essentially create an echo chamber, right? You can have an echo chamber of these are the things that people talk about. I don't know any other opinions out there because I'm not being exposed to them. All these apps are only serving me information and content that speaks to me and is in my language. And again, yes, I feel like I'm in tune with them. I feel like I'm part of a community, but am I really seeing the bigger picture? And this is how we get situations that are more politically charged in nature, right? Where they have, you have one side that hates the other side and they never get along. And why is that? Well, that's because, we were led to believe a certain narrative, and then we just get being fed that narrative over and over again, and we don't end up seeing other opinions. And I think that's a bit sad for our personal growth, at least. So I've talked a bit now about these ideas, and I want to talk about your ideas on this, right? Obviously, I've shared a few things so far. I'd love to hear what you guys think, and feel free to just raise your hand and I'll call on you with the button in the bottom left. But, what other things do you feel like trigger attention currently? And do you have a specific example that you feel like, that is a constant kind of trigger for you? And maybe we can break that down in the next chapter when we talk about how can we break down these triggers and essentially move it over to something that can be beneficial for your life. Awesome. So let's see who's asking questions. I see John is very excitedly raising his hand, so maybe we'll have John go ahead.
All right, you said trigger. Did you say engagement or excitement, or what did you say? Trigger what?
Well, essentially at this point, we're talking about what social media, game applications, TV shows, media, how do they capture your attention?
Well, they know your routine and they know everything you do. So they just put the things that you spend the most time on in front of you because they already know that's what you're drawn to.
Yeah, exactly. So serving you content that they believe you might need, and essentially
or they want you to need,
exactly, right? Moving you towards a direction where you guys all seen the Facebook scandal, right? Facebook knows certain basic information about you, and therefore they know that you're more likely to be swayed towards a particular political direction if they serve you the right media at the right time.
Honestly, that branches out a lot more. I could go all day about that.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any ideas as well, based on everything I've shared so far? Oh,
I did have a question.
Go ahead.
Is there like a goal or a higher deal that I missed for this? Any more context in that regard?
Yeah, if someone could type out that for John, I think that would be helpful because I did already speak on it as well. But just to
Is it the introduction science behind gamification? Those.
correct, yeah. So right now I'm talking about the ways that all these corporations are harnessing the ability to control our attention and our emotions, and then I'm going to move on to talking about how we can harness that for ourselves. Awesome. Anyone else? Any ideas from you guys? Happy to anything. Shannon?
Well, I just really love to read and learn. So the internet is like having the library in my home. So I just want to, yeah, it's hard to put it down. It's like having 1,000 books and that you like, and it's hard to put it down and just live your life you used to have before the internet. So it's convenient, but I almost kind of liked my life before the internet because I wasn't distracted and I focused on myself and friends and family. And but we all fall into it and we carry our mobile devices. So yeah, I'm looking forward to what you have to say so that we can just stop the distraction and control our own daily lives better like we should.
It's so convenient that it becomes inconvenient, and you basically have to map out and plan if what you're going to use and how you're going to use it, or you're just going to be just going and using whatever and whatever gets your attention the most. I learned that very well.
Exactly. Anyone else have any thoughts? Thank you both for sharing. I want to just make sure we have everyone talk about it. And we'll keep asking questions as we go through this. There's lots of things that we can discuss on this topic for sure. So happy to have that conversation as well. So for Joshwin, he says that I think it's more of a habit. It's more of a habit anyways, nowadays, sorry. Whenever you're bored, you open up Twitter or Facebook out of habits, and then you'll likely see something that's controversial. Makes a lot of sense, right? Again, they've embedded themselves into your habitual behavior. They've made it part of your routine. And some people, they wake up, they have to scroll through the news feed. Some people, when they go to the washroom, they go and scroll YouTube, right? Or watch something shorts. When we're eating, right? When we're eating, we watch so many things on YouTube. And again, you can essentially have a lot of learning, I think you can get from that, which I 100% agree with what Shannon's saying. But more often than not, a lot of times that learning is served together with other, I guess, more, I'll categorize as more heinous contents. So in this way, I want to make sure that we know exactly how we can harness this energy and move forward. So great. So let's move on. Let's talk about taking back life control. So this is an opportunity like none other. And the idea here is that we have our full power to remap the neurochemical pathways. And here I'm going to get a little bit sciencey just to help you understand that there is science behind what I'm saying. It's not just pure theory, there's real science behind this. And I actually want to say that this is more of an opportunity right now, because life is how it is, right? None of us today have the power to say, hey, shut off the internet, like for everybody. There isn't, right? And for the most part, we rely on the internet a lot for what we do on a daily basis. Maybe nowadays COVID, talking to parents, right? Talking to relatives that we can't meet in person anymore. Maybe it's working from home, right? Working online. Maybe it's learning, right? Maybe we don't have access to resources that will give us as much learning as we do today, if not on the internet. Many ways right now that we can we use the internet, and that's why we can't just say, hey, let's turn it off for everybody. It doesn't work that way. But how can we essentially hijack the pathways that have been forcefully created inside our brains right? If you think of it like this, the corporations, again, games, social media, whatever, let's just call them corporations for now, right? As a catch-all term for all of this, they've essentially drilled holes into your brain. They've drilled a funnel. And this funnel, right, just like what Joshua is saying, is always open. You have a habit that constantly triggers this funnel to stay open. And if it's always open all the time, they can feed anything they want into your brain anytime they want. And they can trigger the same feelings anytime they want, whenever they want. They know how to trigger sadness, trigger happiness, trigger, extreme feelings, right? Extreme anger even. And the more extreme, the better, right? So essentially they keep on just feeding information and making that hole larger and larger and larger. And what I want to tell you is that this is an opportunity for you to take over that hole, to take over that pathway, so that you essentially can control the inputs that go in. And instead of it feeding you bad information, or at least information that isn't in your best interest, is in their best interest. And again, I will say that sometimes those can align. That's not to say it won't align all the time, but for sure, for the most part, is their interests take priority over yours. And I'm saying that what if you can put the inputs where you have your best interest in mind, and you can feed yourself any good things that you want. So we have an opportunity now in this day and age, right? And nobody else has this, I want to say. Like, if you look back 50 years ago, nobody could say that they can gamify their lives, and to this degree anyway, right? And I can imagine it will get even better in the future. And I say better with like a huge grain of salt, better, whatever that means, right? But what I'm trying to say here is that while you're able to push this narrative to yourself that, hey, what I want to say is, you should be pushing this narrative to yourself that you can take back life control. You're not a slave to all these social media applications. You're not a slave to your base desires, because you can essentially control the inputs that come in. So let's talk about how that works, okay? So there's a step-by-step strategy that I want to talk about that I'm going to be elaborating on a general level, and on this general level, I will be talking about this step by step, and I'll be pausing on each step, on each rule, so that we can have a quick discussion about it and discuss how you're doing it currently in real life, and if there's something that we can do more. And I'd love to have this as an active discussion, because there's lots of ideas on this, and many people have different opinions on how this works. So the first thing is, rule number one is celebrate your wins. And the idea behind this is, I want you to be optimistic about each and every one of your successes, especially if they're driving you towards a direction that you want to go towards. So the reason why I say this is twofold. The first thing is, a lot of us don't respect our wins. And I say that with the kindest way possible. And what I mean is that a lot of times when we accomplish something, we don't acknowledge it. We don't believe that we did something of value. We don't believe that it's something worth celebrating, because, hey, look, it's just something that I did. Maybe it's not something that necessarily I feel like moved the needle by a lot, and therefore I'm not happy about it, right? Or maybe I don't think anybody else will celebrate with me, right? Maybe I don't think it's something worth sharing to others. And that creates a level of pessimism about our own lives versus other people's lives, versus other lives that I could be having, even if I don't, compare to others, even comparing to self, right? It creates a feeling of constant begrudgment about our own successes, and I don't think that's healthy for you. The first thing I want you to know is that each win of yours is something worth celebrating. Everything that you do is something worth celebrating, because it's something that you did, and it's going to contribute to your life in some way. I want you to have this mentality, and this is where I go into the second part of why this is important. It's because when you have the mentality that everything is worth celebrating and everything is worth doing, you start having an optimistic approach to life, where you're more eager to experiment, you're more eager to try something new, you're more eager to do things, right? Because you know that there is a reward at the end of the day. And at the beginning, we can talk about it in terms of just, hey, patting yourself on the back, right? Eating a chocolate bar, maybe not something physical, but ideally something more, more triggering in terms of intangible rewards, right? I want to train you on that. But eventually it can keep growing and growing to the level where you essentially can unlock a dopamine hit every time you have a win. And that dopamine hit is, for those who are unfamiliar, dopamine is essentially the chemical in your brain that's secreted, right? Whenever you feel happy, you feel good, or you feel satisfied. It's a happiness hormone, if you can think about it that way. It's close to serotonin. Anyway, what I'm trying to say here though is that this rule number 1 is all about ensuring that you are in control of your own dopamine hits whenever you accomplish something in your life. And accomplishments doesn't have to be huge accomplishments. They can be small. So here's where I want to take a quick breather and ask you guys, right? What are some wins that you celebrate? Or if you don't have celebrations yet, what are some wins that you hope to celebrate, that you hope that you can feel better about, because you have this inkling that, these are things that are worth celebrating, worth doing. And again, raise your hand if you'd like to talk, either through the button on the bottom left of this application or in the camera, whatever you like. All right, John, you can go first.
I completely agree 100% on the celebrate your wins. One thing I'd like to add is celebrate your losses and really be mindful of your loss and why you lost and what went wrong and what you could have done, because a loss is just trying to reroute you back to the path, to win. So any loss is just a learning tool to reroute to win. As far as celebrate your wins, I don't have anything intuitive on that.
Oh, good. Yeah. Thanks for adding that, by the way. And that's something we'll definitely touch on in great detail in point number 2, or rule number 2, because the whole idea is, yes, celebrate your wins, but also understand your failures and celebrate them as well, and understand how we can build upon that to have more and better wins in the future.
I have one more thing. So don't make the same mistake twice, but don't let a mistake that you've seen somebody else do be a mistake that you repeat also.
Love it. Thanks for the great ideas. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else have any ideas they want to share? Just anything in your life today that you feel like is a win worth celebrating. And if you already celebrated, how do you do it? I'd love to hear that. And I think Alyssa and Nadine probably have some really good ideas on this. So I'm really interested to hear what they have to say as well. Alyssa, go ahead.
Okay, weird call out. Nice, thanks for that. But I do fall into the trap because I have been trying to celebrate the small wins. I really like to announce it and put it up, but I also fall into this kind of to-do list loop where I do things and then I kind of just delete them and I don't really announce them. And that's and I didn't really think about it that much because I was like, oh, nobody wants to see that I did laundry today. That's not something that needs to be celebrated by everyone. But at the same time, just doing something small can be a lot and can give you that extra push to do maybe another thing, or just give yourself that self-care time. And I've also been using that this celebrating your wins with friends. And I before we had that system in Gilded where we would announce it, I would always tell Dean, I would tell Shade, I would tell the people that I cared about, because it made me want to keep doing more and have that kind of that kinship that they get it. Because we had just finished a very big thing with etherealism where we'd been working on it for weeks, and I felt just so proud of every step, and to announce that with every single step, to say that I had a meeting with today and we did edits on this article, and that kept driving us to do more and to actually finish it and do issue 3. So that's my take. If Nadine wants to take hers, go ahead. That's your cue. Goodbye.
I wanted just to comment on Alyssa sharing first. Really appreciate what you shared there, and I think it's a really good reflection of what a lot of us face, right? Let's talk about the first part, where we don't believe that others care about the small, considerably what we think insignificant ways that we have successes every day. And I want to challenge that for a second, for all of us, right? I'm not going to hold Alyssa on the spot for this, but just something for all of us to think about is what makes something not worth sharing, right? Because there's a weird kind of bell curve distribution, I think, at least the way I think about it, where there are the things that are like really extreme and like, wow, nobody has ever done this before, therefore I must share it so other people know about it. And we see a lot of that, you know, in the world records, right? Guinness Book of World Records. These are things that, holy crap, why would someone do this, right? And that's something worth sharing. At least we think about that. It's something worth celebrating. And then there's also the things that maybe only 1,000 people do in the whole world. The things that 10,000 people do, 50,000 people do, 100,000 people do. And again, we like to celebrate those things, and those things get published, those things get, you know, really hyped around. And then, but what about all those things that are daily and mundane that anybody can do? But here's where I want you guys to think about this for a second, right? And let's talk about, you know, vloggers. And I'm saying that, you know, if you're not familiar with the term vloggers, essentially people who are on YouTube or on Facebook and they post videos of themselves in everyday lives. Well, I gotta ask you, why are people watching that? Why do they get millions of views? If daily mundane life is really so boring and that nobody will care about it, why do millions of people watch vlogging? Live streaming, right? These people are literally living out daily life, and for the most part nothing tremendously exciting. Of course, they'll make contents, they'll try to hype up their life a little bit, they'll do some outrageous things on camera, I'm sure, but for the most part they're doing daily mundane things and we're fascinated by it. Oh my gosh, they're eating cereal. They're running around outside, they're taking a walk. What's happening here, right? And the reason why I'm bringing that up is I want you guys to kind of think about it in this way, where daily life is something that we can resonate with, and things that we resonate with, we tend to gravitate towards, because it's much easier to resonate with someone who's doing something that you can do as well, versus seeing someone do something that you can never do, or at least perceivably never do. Like watching someone become an astronaut or going to outer space is something that's realistically I'm not going to be able to do in my lifetime, unless, you know, flights to Mars are going to cost cheaper than, you know, $1 million a ticket. But for the most part, right, I'm going to essentially resonate with things that people are doing that, you know, are things that I can do as well, or maybe just a little out of reach, right? And the last thing I want to say on this before I get someone else to perhaps talk about it is the things that we think are something that we find easy to do might be something that other people find that is tough for them to do today, right? Not to say tough for them to do on a physical level or emotional level. Well, actually, on all these levels, emotional, physical, and every level, right? Let's use the laundry example. Maybe I don't feel like doing my laundry for the last few weeks. Maybe I feel physically drained. Maybe I feel like there's a mental block on doing my laundry. Here I see Alyssa doing her laundry. I'm like, damn, I should do my laundry too. You guys actually don't know. There's a funny story on this. We had a study with us session. It was, I think, Anne, Shania, Alyssa, and a few other people. I think we were like 5 or 6 people in the study with us session. And one person said, I gotta do laundry. And the rest of us said, we're gonna do laundry too. We all forgot that we had to do laundry. Or well, we all didn't feel like we had to do laundry until that one person said they would do it. And then one person said, I've done it. And we're like, great, now you've done it, now we have to do it. So what I want to share here is that the cascading effects of doing something mundane and sharing about it is actually something that you cannot underestimate. It can bring so much more value to other people's lives that you don't even know. And for me, that's something that I'm very passionate about, is contribution to others, because I know that what I do will have an effect on others, and I try to make it as positive as possible because I know that that will come back around to me at some point in the future, right? And the more that we can bring out this idea of contribution to others, the more that this giving can come around. And really, I gotta say, hopefully with my examples I've illustrated, it's giving you some insights on how this works, and be a bit more optimistic about sharing every win that you have. Open for a few more ideas on this. John, your hand is still up. Is this something you still want to speak, or okay? And then Alyssa after this. Go ahead.
I think some of what I do or whatever is more on the extreme side. So, I'm not sure like if it would be something that worked for everybody or if it's a good thing or not. But one thing is, first of all, I don't think, like you said, you can't be an astronaut. I'm just like, yeah, you can if you want to, Sure. And there's that. And then I was waiting so long, I kind of forgot what I was wanting to say on that. I'll go ahead and let whoever's next go. Maybe
Alyssa, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think I remember that day, and I'm pretty sure it was Nadine who's like folding clothes like on, and she like had her camera on. She's like, "I'm sorry, everyone, I'm doing laundry," and I was like, "I need to go do laundry with my mom." And it's like, I need to go do laundry, and it does remind me of like, so something to bring up is that Nadine has been a pivotal person to help me with my workouts, because again, even though to someone who's like, I don't know, a bodybuilder or something, working out is easy, but for someone like me, it is not easy, and it takes a lot of time to push myself to do that. And to have Nadine be like, well, I just did 2 hours of like Just Dance today and I feel great about it, then I'm going to be like, well, guess I'm going to do some dance fitness as well. And it really helps like push me to do better and like celebrate her while also celebrating like us together, which is became a weird promo for accountability bunnies. But yeah, I do think there is value when you celebrate your wins and also support someone else's wins in the process. So that's it from me.
Thank you for sharing that. And that is definitely something we're going to be discussing here as well. You'll see that we have Rule 5, which is going to be multiplayer. So I'd love to talk about that in a second. John, I know your hand's up. If your point is quick, I'll let you go. Yeah.
So I, again, on an extreme dog, so it may not be for you or whatever, but as far as I fundamentally believe that, what other people think is really something that I just don't even, it's not even on my plane, as far as like, well, it is. I can't say it's not, but it's something that actively, I don't care what they're doing or what they're doing or what they have done or what they think they have done or what they think I can do. It's, it's different. Does that make sense?
Well, so let me tackle that for a second. I think there's actually an interesting point there, and Anne's next after this, because she hasn't said anything yet. But what I want to say here is that there's a few types of people, and I'm going to generalize. I'm going to make it polars, but that there's going to be people in between as well. Right? Let's just say there's two types of people. Let's say there's a type of people that currently are hooked on social media, games, media, right? They care so much about, what's happening to their favorite celebrity. They care so much what's happening to their latest influencer. They care so much about the opinion of others. Each comment, each like, each dislike, everything matters so much to them, right? There's that one type of person. There's also the type of person that, completely stoic, doesn't care about anything and anybody that has an opinion about them, right? Social media doesn't really matter. They're using it for their own needs. going they're not engrossed in the dramas of online happenings, and essentially they're completely polar opposites is what I'm trying to say, right? But what I would propose here is that for the people that are gearing more towards being very driven by social media, driven by others, there's a way for us to leverage that for our own personal growth. Great, you're driven by others. How can we find some healthy role models to look up to? How can we find some healthy ways that we can, move up step by step? So instead of going after, again, John, I agree with you. Anybody can be anything. I do agree with that. But I mean that looking for someone that has done something very recently that was just a little beyond your reach so that you could reach for it. Then you do the next thing that just again beyond your reach again. And instead of reaching for, the enormous high goal up there it will take years to reach, you're reaching for small little wins that get you a scaffolding, right? Step by step to where you want to go. So that's the idea that I have for people that are very much driven by, these things. And for people that are not so driven right now, right, that remain completely stoic. And again, I don't think anyone is on that extreme end. Everyone is on some kind of spectrum. But for people that are gearing towards that angle, well, celebrating your wins could also mean celebrating for yourself, right? You should care about your own opinion, I think, right? And for the most part, we do. And if you care about your own opinion and about others, how can you make sure that you yourself believe in what you're doing and celebrate the things that you are essentially embarking on, the adventure that you're on, and making sure that you personally are living up to your own ideal version of yourself and scaffolding from there. So that's the ideas there, and I know if I continue on this rule number 1 will never end, and our class will be done. So let's pause on this for now. But Anne, I do want to hear what you have to say. Anne, would you like to speak on something?
I was just going to say, as far as my own win, I've been listening to you and Alyssa, and it's like, it's all good. My last win was just this last 9 days that I went on vacation. For me, it was like, I wanted to see my son. I want to see my grandson, my daughter-in-law. And it's like, I did all the planning. I made the checklist. We traveled cross country, not getting mad at each other, between Rich and me. And, we had this tremendous adventure, and we came back, and it was like, Dr. Marvin said something on the way, because, we talked to him in the car, and it's like, it's just being in the present, just living in the present and being in the moment right now. And so appreciating like the green trees we were passing in the mountains and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I did that. And I came back, and I knew I was successful because I came back to here, and it was like, even though I'd put this aside, it was like all of a sudden was exciting and was fresh and new. And it's like, oh, Conrad's giving me an assignment. Okay, I'm in, and, I consider those all wins.
Yeah. Awesome. And that's one more point I'll make on this rule number 1, and then we'll move on to number 2, where again, each thing in your life can be a win, right? You don't need to overthink it. As long as you're doing something that's worth doing in your own opinion, right? And something that is moving you towards a direction that you think is favorable for you, and it will bring you to, a level of joy and happiness that you want to go towards, then yeah, that is a win. And whether it be helpful for you yourself, whether it be helpful for other people to follow in your footsteps, whatever it might be, use that as motivation for celebrating wins. Great. Let's talk.
Celebrating wins is the actual completing it and just having it done.
Yeah.
That's a really big celebration for me.
Yeah. So solving wins, even if they're just small little ones, any way that you can check off a task, have that haptic feedback. Super nice. Thank you, John. All right. Moving on. Be data driven. So I talked a bit about it before, where right now all these different organizations, corporations are using their data of you, right? So your data, and making sure that essentially they can harness that information and serve you content that's very, very specific to you and you only, in the sense that you essentially go down a rabbit hole of content, right? And ideally, their goal is that at the end of the rabbit hole, they can sell you something because you've been primed to know that, hey, this is the problem I have, and this is how they can solve it with just one weird hack. And essentially, this is essentially how they're continuously keeping you in the cycle, and you continuously keep on thinking that there is something more out there for you, and you keep scrolling, you keep refreshing just to get that next dopamine hit from the content that they'll serve that is very much talking your language, in your interest, and something that you want to watch. So my rule number 2 here is this: if you can be data driven for yourself, and in a sense data driven on, making sure that you know what wins that you do that are really successful, right? What times of the day that you accomplish things, what kind of tasks you do really well, what kind of break and work kind of ratio works the best for you. Maybe it's 25 minutes work, 5 minutes break. Maybe it's 50 minutes work, 10 minutes break. Maybe it's more than that. Who knows? Whatever works for you, you need to know it to the T, because I think it's a bit ridiculous that so many of us go through 20, 30, 40, 50 years of our life without even knowing exactly how our productivity works. And everyone's is going to be different, right? And of course, we go online to try to find so many different ways to be more productive. But I think that there's something worth noting about in terms of really understanding, hey, I'm productive the most on creative tasks between 10 to 12 a.m. And I'm the most productive on accounting or financial or math related tasks between 5 to 6 p.m. These are all information that will keep us very much motivated and satisfied with our own kind of progression, because we know exactly how to trigger ourselves to be more motivated, to be more productive, to be more efficient in anything that we do. Another thing that was mentioned before, I think by John, was that, on top of tracking your wins, we're also tracking our failures. And I don't want you to think of failures as like a scary bad thing, because failures in itself are opportunities. And I really want to hammer down that point. Failures are immense opportunities for you to learn something and for you to do better. Here's an example, right? And I'll speak on this from a business angle, which not everyone can relate to, but maybe you can imagine the idea where, if I'm running a business, right, and let's say I got a customer coming in the door, it's very, very hard for me to know exactly why that customer came in the door unless I do surveying, unless I ask them a lot of questions. Like, that's a win, right? Getting that customer is a win, but knowing why that was a win is an extremely hard thing to do, right? There's enormous science around it. There's even consulting firms that, their whole job is to help you survey your customers. Now, instead, imagine that there's a failure, right? I wasn't able to get a sale. I wasn't able to, finish a deal. Getting the reason behind that no is much more easier than getting the reason behind a yes. Because when people say no is a very easy thing to explain. It's like, hey, I said no because X, Y, and Z. These are reasons why it didn't work for me. Great, we can improve on that. We can work on that. When people say yes, there's so many factors that end up driving their yes decision that you're not essentially very sure on why that yes came about. So, and of course you can make arguments for either side, and that's a longer discussion. But what I'm trying to say is that most of the time failures will teach you more than successes, because failures, you can quantify the failure, you can make iterations to see what can change to make successes happen. And another example I think would be useful is, let's talk about science classes, right? When you have a science class, you're always taught to isolate for variables and solve for one variable at a time, because when you change each variable at a time, you can then know exactly what's driving you towards success. So imagine if I had an experiment, right? And from the start, I just threw everything together and the experiment outcome ended up like I wanted. The hypothesis was proven. Great. What proved it? Which one of these variables proved this hypothesis? I have no idea. But if I had a failure going through the process and I had to set up variables and I changed one after the other and I eventually got to the variable that, hey, I changed this and this experiment outcome ended up being successful, that's where I know that, hey, this is what really drives me success. So anyway, long story short, I just want to make it clear that data-driven doesn't mean just celebrating, just keeping track of your wins, but also keeping track of your failures, knowing exactly what works for you, what doesn't, and what can we do about that here on in the future. Great, let's have a small discussion on this. I see John has his hand up. John, go ahead if you like.
I'll try to be quick. You know, the most successful people in the world, you look at every single one of them has more failures than they have successes. Okay, so it's not something you're going to be able to avoid or anything like that, you know. The other thing, I've got about a 7th or 8th grade science level. I'm not sure what he was talking about as far as mapping something out. So you said you wanted to make it clear. You did not make it clear to me. I do not know what you're talking about. Let's see. I think that's about it.
Yeah, I actually really like, you know, because I want to give you a better example. I really like what was just shared by Christian. Essentially, you know, it's a survivorship bias, right? You see a lot of successful people out there and they preach very similar things. But one thing that they don't realize is they're a survivor, right? A lot of people can preach the same things, but they're not so successful. But what we see is successful people saying the successful things. And then we think of that as, hey, this is the secret to success. This is how we do it. And you should research this on your own time if you want to. I think it's something it's worth knowing in fundamentals. I can't explain too much about it on this call, but the idea is that if you're just basing all your decisions on the successful metrics, then you are not actually very certain on what actually you need to improve. And okay, I have time. I'll do a 1-minute example. World War II. Okay. I think it was British pilots came back from World War II, and you know, they were having all these planes that were flying, and essentially they were trying to figure out how they can reinforce their planes so that they don't get shot down so often by the enemy troops who were the Japanese at the time. And essentially, the engineer, when they came back, when the planes came back, and the engineer was looking at the bullet holes that riddled the plane, they were asking, where can we patch up the plane? And we have limited amount of resources, limited amount of metal. Where can we patch up the plane so that the plane won't crash? That will increase the survivorship of the pilots in the planes. And the answer wasn't where the bullet holes were, right? You patch where the bullet holes aren't. Because if you patch where the bullet holes are, it doesn't make a difference, because the plane came back even with the bullet holes in those locations. It means that the plane can fly and get back home, even if it's damaged in those areas. Instead, you want to patch the non-damaged areas, because obviously the planes that didn't come back are the ones that got damaged in those areas. So that's a way of how you can defeat the survivorship bias and understand that a little better. Maybe I'll have a written article on this at some point if you need more explanation on this specific topic. But yeah, it's a very interesting one for sure. Anybody else? Hands up if you have questions, bottom left. If not, we'll move on and get to rule number 3. All right. Rule number 3. Let's talk about rewarding consistency. Okay. So what I want to talk about on this is it's really what we do daily that leads up to our eventual success. And I don't think I'm the first to say this, and I'm definitely not going to be the last. You're going to hear this many, many times in your lifetime. But the idea that I want to share here is, how can we get ourselves into routines? How can we get ourselves to do daily consistent actions and be satisfied in those daily actions and not think of them as chores or monotonous routines that we hate to do, but rather things that we like to do and we enjoy doing? And the example I always will give here, because it's just such a powerful example for me, is whenever I play any games, like there's always something about the game that makes me always go back day after day, whether it's a login reward or a first win of the day bonus, or just some kind of like intrinsic bonus, intangible for sure, reward inside the game that makes me want to at least go in every day to play one game, to do one action on the platform, and it'll continuously make me go in. Because if you guys know how to build a good habit, building a habit essentially means, it essentially takes you to take a trigger, right, and then have an action attached to it. So the trigger in this case in the game is, you should log in now to get this daily reward. You log in, you do this action, and now you're in the app already, so you're just going to continuously play. You're going to play a bit more than just the 5 minutes that's needed for that task, right? So there's always these little hacks that you can that are done inside these games and inside that make you really enjoy these consistent daily actions, or at least if not enjoy it, you do it anyway. And I want to bring that to your attention because we can also do that through music triggers. We can do that through completion rewards on a daily basis. We can do that through streaks, right? Having achievements, badges to know that, hey, we've actually done this thing for 100 days now. That's amazing. We've done it for 120 days, we're in 150 days. And we continuously just build upon that understanding and reward our own consistency and reward the ways that we are able to build up our success, or build up at least our actions towards the success that we want in our lives. And I'm going to get into this a bit more as we get into the third part of today's session, which is how we can turn any Notion database into a gamified into a gamified system. But what I really want you guys to understand here is that rewarding consistency is the most critical part of any success that you want to get towards, because no matter if it's training for some kind of physical activity, no matter if it's studying, no matter if it's gaining competency, you always need 10,000 hours at least to get real mastery of that skill. So how do you start on that 10,000 hours? Well, it's by doing things daily that build up that kind of progression and consistency. So I'm going to talk about the next two rules in sequential order, and then I'll have a discussion on all three of these, because I think there's a level of interconnection that I'd like to touch towards and have these things weave together. So let's talk about writing a story, right? And writing a story, essentially, the idea here is that we're the most engaged whenever we discover there's a narrative behind the content. And this is the reason why we love binge watching TV series, right? Why we love hearing about documentaries, why there's always a narrative around every single thing that we digest, all the content that we digest. And what I want to tell you is that, and this is very in line with everything I've shared so far, is your life is interesting. Your life is an epic adventure, right? You are doing things that are interesting to other people. You are doing things that are interesting, should be interesting to yourself. And you are doing things that are important in your own way. Each one of your actions has meaning, right? And meaning is what you make of it. So why not immerse yourself in your own life story? Why not make your life the best it can be and create a whole narrative around why your life is, what you want to achieve, and how you're going to get there? And for the most part, I want to say we do have a narrative. We make up narratives all the time. We make up stories all the time when we try to rationalize things that we do. But we don't do it in a very intentional manner. We don't do it in the same way that's essentially, the way that media does it, right? We don't do it. We don't think of ourselves as the hero of our own story. And when we do, and we know many people like this, they become too much of a protagonist in their own story and they become egocentric. I'm not saying to do that, right? But there's a healthy level of, self acceptance, right, that we can appreciate here, that essentially makes it possible for us to create a narrative and create a storyline for ourselves. And the favorite thing I like to do, and this is for all the creative people out there, is make arcs for yourself, make story arcs, because at the end of every story arc there's always a redemption, right? There's always a climax. The protagonist learns something new, is able to overcome certain problems, has success in this way, finds a love interest, who knows, right? But there's always some kind of climax that provides some kind of resolution to the story. There's always a silver lining, if anything, right? That makes a story have a good ending. And also there's always ups and downs, right? Which is very indicative of real life. Real life is up and downs. We always have, a roller coaster of emotions, but what's important is they're emotions that we personally can control. We define the own story of our lives. Our life is our own perception, right? And this is something that I think, you'll come across if you study philosophy, is you understand that everything in life is how you perceive it. If you decide to be angry about something, if you decide to be offended by something, you decide to be happy about something, that's entirely in your control, whether you want to believe that today or not. And that's something that I truly believe in. This is something that you can leverage, right? Because if you can write a story about what's happening in your life today, and I'm not saying this to, I just want to be very clear, because I know that this is a sensitive topic to some, where I'm not saying to rationalize away trauma. There are some things that are truly bad that happen to people in the world, and I'm not saying that that's okay. But what I'm saying is that if that's happened, what can I do about it from here on out? Instead of blaming myself, poor me, or blaming others, making sure that you yourself have a next step to go and you're writing a story around it. And if you are someone that appreciates games or media, really immersing yourself into a similar storyline as your favorite TV show or game is an amazing way to start on this journey, where you can start drawing parallels from these characters that you like, right? And best thing is, when you write the story, you can change the narrative. You can change the struggles that they face. You can change the happinesses that they have, the successes they have, and make that work for you instead. So I think that is very, very good. I see there was a hand raised. Is that still something that you want to jump in on quickly? Go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. So visualization and visualizing yourself already completing something, or visualizing who you want to become, I believe is one of the most powerful things in this. And also too, paired that with a vision board where it's physical, it's tangible. And, sometimes you can do things like that, like create a vision board, and things come out that you weren't even really aware of that you were wanting, or, etc. That's all I got right now.
Great. Thank you for joining in on that and adding that to the discussion. I love it. Any tools that you have that help you essentially build up your story, build up the visualization of your adventure and your path. Amazing stuff. John?
Yeah, the other thing is I believe that extremism. I believe that the suffering is about equal power or whatever. With I don't think that just coasting is going to make you grow near as much as if you have to struggle to get something. I believe you will also not reward, but what's the first one or second one or whatever? It'll be like a success.
Yeah, so I want to also talk about what Christian and Alyssa is saying, because I think that there's a level of, I don't know how to explain this properly. There is a proper psychological reason for this, but essentially the idea here is that we're always kinder to others than we are to ourselves. And a really good way to treat yourself better or have a happier life is to treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping. That's a quote from Jordan Peterson. And this is something that I think works really well when you put yourself into the narrative writing mode, because when you start writing a story about yourself, you essentially take yourself out of the first person view and you become a third person view. you start seeing your character, right, your own self, from a third perspective, from a third eye, from a bird's eye view, if you want to call it that way. And that gives you the power to treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping, to disassociate your current fears, your current pains, your current struggles to someone's life that you're observing. And again, it's your life. I'm not saying to throw away your problems, but I'm saying that through this dissociation, you're able to think more rationally about what's happening to you and really appreciate it for what it is, and then ask the question, what can I do next? That really is one of the best hacks I can ever share about being able to solve problems, is to be able to dissociate from yourself, from the problem, have a kind of arm's length relationship. And again, the best way to do that is if you want to subscribe to the whole gamification method and the philosophies here, write a story, right? Make a storyline, craft a very beautiful or thrilling or whatever story you'd like that really triggers your creative juices and makes yourself feel like you're part of the story instead of just being reactive to everything that comes around. Awesome. So let's talk about the last rule number 5. And rule number 5 is a rule that I think we all agree with and appreciate here in this community. And rule number 5 is embracing multiplayer. And the reason why I want to talk about this is that I think we mentioned this in a few points in this call, but I want to say is that we're social creatures. We're immensely social creatures. We're people that need to be essentially continuously engage with others. And even if you're not engaged with others in terms of getting approval, we often feel like we need to be engaged with others just to survive. And that's something that is very clearly defined in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? We have social needs. Everybody has social needs. And we need to have the feeling of belonging. So what really motivates me, at least personally, is whenever someone is on the journey with me, when I feel like there's other people involved in this adventure, when I feel like I have party members with me, this is something that pushes me to do greater and better things, or even just doing the thing at all. I wanted to say something, and it's great that Christian is here. Christian has been inside the co-working channels for the last few weeks, almost on a daily basis, for at least a few hours, if not, more than 5, right? I've always seen them on. And what I've realized is, even for myself, sometimes I've just finished a long day of work and I don't necessarily feel like creating content right now, or writing more articles, or just doing anything more than just going to bed and watching some movies, or just, going home and doing procrastinating. But seeing Christian on the co-working channels and making sure that and seeing him work, right? Just having that level of accountability has made me so much more productive on top of the normal productivity I have, because I know that someone else is doing similar things, even if they're not doing this exact same thing as me. And the best part is I'm even able to get feedback from the people that are in the party, right? In this case, Ungilded. And the idea here is, again, I'm going to use a game analogy here. The last few, like I said, are connected through game analogies. And the game analogy here that I want to really push forward is, whenever we're on an adventure, there are always different roles that are needed to be on this adventure with us. Some people might be the tank. They'll take all the damage and they'll make sure that they're defending the weaker members, the squishier members, not weaker, but the less health members of the party. There's the people that have less health, right? But are high damage dealers. They're either mages, or they're some kind of specialized archer or whatever, but they do very high piercing damage and they get, the job done in that way, right? But they need someone to protect them, to, have a shield in front of them to make sure that they don't essentially get run over and get one-shotted and get killed, right, by the boss. There's also the healers, right? The people that are going to heal the party and make sure that the party stays healthy, even if they take damage along the way. There's all sorts of different roles that are needed inside a party for a game, for a quest. There's also different roles needed in a company, right? I think that mirrors it very well. But we don't see that for our personal lives. We have not yet gotten to a point, at least as a society, where we have acknowledged that for our personal lives, there are different roles, and maybe we're not good at all of them, and that's fine. Other people can be there for us to support us on this journey, and we don't need to struggle alone. As long as we can find the people that align with us on our why, what, or hows, that will make us more engaged to do the things that matter. That'll help us gain more progress on the things that matter, right? Move faster, move smarter, because we're learning from others. And it can make sure that we are satisfying the most human components of us all, which is the need to belong and the feeling of essentially connecting and bonding with others. So I love being able to go through these last few steps. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this before we go ahead and talk about our practical examples with Notion databases. So I'd love to hear from you what you think about these 5 rules so far, how you're already feeling like it's going to impact your life, right? Again, like I mentioned at the beginning of this class, I want you guys to take this and even think about it outside of the scope of any systems that you have today, whether it be Notion or paper planners or whatever, and just really acknowledge that these are things that you can keep in mind and start applying in your lives today, even without a system. And of course, I will then talk about how the system will make sure that you continuously do this, because if you're feeling motivated after this class for like 5 minutes, for like a day or a week, isn't what I want. I want you guys to feel motivated, do something about it, take action, and hopefully continuously build upon these rules and make your life better, live a better life. So let's talk about this more. Christian has his hand up. Christian, floor is all yours.
Reward consistency. Now, if I'm misunderstanding, please do correct me, but I heard that games often use reward inconsistency to make it more addictive. Is that also something that we can use to our benefit, or is that something that we should try to avoid?
Okay, this is a really good one, and I think resonates a lot with people who have a gaming background. And if you don't, I'll try to explain it as best as I can for us all to understand and appreciate. So the way that games award inconsistency, at least the way I see it, is inconsistent loot drops, right? Percentage loot drops, you don't know when, it's not a guaranteed drop. There's always things like, loot boxes that give you randomized rewards, right? And then you keep on trying and trying and trying until you get the reward that you want. And I think that comes hand in hand with rule number 3. I don't think there's a conflict, and here's why. The consistency is that I am going to continuously kill this monster, right? And farm this monster so I can get a drop. Is the drop going to be the drop that I want, the equipment that I want? Maybe not. But because I don't know if it's going to be the success I want yet, I'm going to continuously do it. And then how does the game make sure I do it at the beginning? How does the game make sure that I start off by chasing after and continuously building on my rewards? Well, it'll start off by saying, hey, hunt 50 of these, hunt 100 of these. There's always this kind of quest that tells you how to start. You're going to start by hunting 50, start by hunting 100, then you realize there's something that this drops that's going to be valuable for your life, and then you do it on a basis of hoping to get that success metric that you want out of this action. Real life is the same way, okay? Real life, what I want to teach you is think of ways to start building up a routine. Think of ways to start building up ways that you can consistently work on something. Now that you're consistently working on something, let's say every day you're doing 10 push-ups, 50 push-ups, then becomes 100 push-ups, whatever it might be, then you start seeing physical changes in your body. You start feeling stronger. Great. Now, I don't know when I'm going to hit like the next strong milestone, right? I don't know when I'm going to be able, hey, how many push-ups becomes, I can bench, 100 pounds, right? How many, and I'm just using physical examples as a way, think of this as anything, right? But any skill building. But there's always going to be these, eureka moments where you do something very well, you unlock some kind of technique, you're doing something better, and eventually that makes it so that you have a reward at the end of the day. You feel stronger, you feel better, you feel something has improved about your life. And when that happens, that's when you want to say, well, great, I've improved my life in this way. Now I want to continuously do this consistent routine because I know that it's going to bring me that success at the end. So Christian, hopefully that answers your question. I think that goes directly hand in hand. Yeah. Awesome. Anybody else have any ideas about what I've just shared? Any insights that you took away that you thought was extremely important, that matters to you? Just anything you'd like to highlight. I think it's something I'd like to hear. Like what about these 5 steps made sense for you? And what didn't, maybe? Who knows? Well, if there's no other feedback on this, perhaps we can go straight into our practical examples with Notion. And I'm going to try my best to make sure that I cover as many takes as I can, as many different ways of gamifying your life in different manners, of course. But of course, if you guys have any ideas on what you already want me to cover for gamification, let me know, because I want to help you. Okay, I want to make sure that, hey, maybe Shannon wants to gamify her reading, right? Maybe that's something that she wants to gamify. How can you do that? That's something I'm happy to cover. Okay. So while I'm covering this, it'll be really good for you guys if you can share in the chat what are some systems that you want to gamify, and I can, while sharing how things are gamified in Notion, also talk about that specific system in itself, so that I can teach you how that works. Okay. So I'm going to share my window, share systems for a better life. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is just show you how gamification works in our system, and then talk a bit about also, of course, how can you add new members, because that's going to be something that you'll learn through this experience, but also how you can build in gamification elements to any system that you'd like. So let me know if you guys can see my screen properly. I'm on my Systems for a Better Life. So let me know if you can see it.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. So let's talk about this. So if we skip now to the back end, I want to show you all the different databases that make this work. Okay. So if I go into the backend for backend and views, I just want to show you like why this works and how this works. So if we go into here, and let's say that let's start with the leaderboard. Okay. So the leaderboard is a place where we store all the users. This is a users table, which basically stores, hey, these are all the users that are currently in the system. And it'll roll up all the information on levels, roll up information on experience points, on the level ups, on the goal balances, anything that you have currently that's helping you gear towards success in your life. And the idea behind this database, right, and let me just open it up to show you, is that it's essentially a calculations database. The idea behind this is to make sure that everything that you're doing in your life that can be quantified should be quantified. And at the moment, with Notion's existing capabilities, all we can really do is make sure that every time we have a win, we're tracking that and assigning a value to it. So we have different wins in here. You'll see that we have different tags. 5-minute tasks, 25-minute tasks, project win, big wins, huge wins. You'll notice that if you're a longtime user of our system, you'll notice that we have a new thing for project wins. That's something we didn't have before. But now, whenever you complete a project, you also get a little boost of gold and experience points, which is awesome. And the whole idea here is that I want you to think about your own life as something that can be quantifiable, and not to say quantifiable to compete with others. Okay, I'm not trying to say that, but having some friendly competition isn't a bad thing per se. But I don't want you to feel bad about your level. The idea of the level is to benchmark yourself on how much am I improving per my own expectations, day after day, week after week, month after month. How am I improving on this journey that I call life? And essentially what we can do here, just to walk you through some of the properties here, is right now we have some properties that essentially calculate how much experience points you have until your next level, how much experience point it takes to level, right? This is something that we calculate. And then therefore, what is our current level based on the function of how much experience earned we have, and also, of course, divided by experience to level. So I'm not going to go too much into the details of the formulas here because you can just read them and find out how they connect. But the whole idea is that the information, the dynamic information coming in is always coming in from tags for the wins that you have. And then for the badges that you have, it's all coming from here, this badge. And then everything else are just roll-ups that are bringing the information into your own system to make sure everything rolls up properly. I will explain that when we do a practical example, so don't worry about that. But for the most part, if you already have the system, all you have to do is just ensure that the tags are also being applied onto any other system that you want. So let's talk about the tags. Let's show you what the tags looks like, okay? So the tags is essentially our backend engine. The tags is the way that we're currently calculating everything inside the system to make sure that all the levels are being properly reflected into any kind of character that you like. And then you can see once you attach the character stats, that's the character that's the win will be assigned to. So let's say I wanted to assign a win to both your avatar and also, let's say, my friend, right? So let's say another person inside the leaderboard, let's say my friend MF, okay? Let's say I wanted to assign some values to them. Let's say I had this 25-minute task, which represented the 25-minute task for our for your avatar, right? But also you have a 25-minute task that's also created for your friend, right? For my friend. So what we can do here, and oops, I realized that wasn't on the big screen, but what we can do here is we can make a copy of this 25-minute task. We can take away this for a second, and we can call this 25-minute task for MF. Let's just call it for my friend, right? For the other person. So what happens here is instead of assigning the character stats for your avatar, for this companion puppy, for Akinatsu, whatever pets you have, what we can do here is we can assign this to both your avatar as well as the avatar of your friend. So this is for all the people who are asking about how do I add a friend to my my gamification system. Well, this is how we can do it, right? So not only is it for your avatar, it's also for my friend. And when this happens, I just want to show you, and because we duplicated it, it'll actually show all the relations for all the different tasks that we have, which we don't want. So actually I'm going to delete some of them. So let's show you. So right now I'm going down into here and we can see the success plan has a bunch of stuff, right? So let me just remove all of that for a second, and what's the best way I can do this? Okay, how about this? Let me just make a new one. So instead of duplicating it, I'm going to make a new one just because I don't want it to be contaminated with the old stuff. Let's say we have a 25-minute task again for another person. For MF, we can copy all these values because it's fine. So we just copy that, paste that into here so that it's the same values. You can say that gives us gold as well. And what we do here is we assign this to both your avatar, and then we assign this to also, let's say my friend right here. And by the way, I'm showing how to do it in Notion, but just know that I'm also building currently a tool that's going to essentially help you gamify any system that you'd like. It's going to read off the Notion API, so we won't need this gamification tags anymore in the future. But anyway, I will teach this for now in case you don't want to subscribe to that service and you just want to, use it entirely self-enclosed in Notion. This is how you would do it. So essentially what we have here is now we have this new 25-minute task, and let's call this a shared task if you like, right? And we know that the shared task is always between your avatar and my friend. And I'll show you different ways of how this works. Let's say I go to the success plan now, okay? Let's go to success plan and let's show you how the success plan looks. So I'm just going to open a success plan in, let's say I open it inside here, so I don't have any particular view. I just want to show all of them as an example. So I'm going to go into my tasks, and right now you can see the task have all these different 25-minute tasks. If instead I add the 25-minute task shared, right, to this, and I say this difficulty is 1, and let's just finish this task. So let's close this task. So I should earn 50 gold and 25 experience points, okay? And so right now, just to show you, right now we have, let me also just show the experience points currently so I can show you how that looks. So experience earned. Okay, so right now my friend has 0 experience earned. Okay, you can see that. And right now this is 175. So the moment that I go into my success plan and I mark this thing as complete, so let's make a due date of today for me, closing date of today, and let's close off this task. I should earn 50 gold, 50 experience point, 50 gold and 25 experience points. So I earned 25 experience points, 50 gold for both users. And if I go back to gamification tags and I decide that, hey, actually, this isn't a shared task, this is only for my friend. So I take out your avatar like this, and then I only have this for my friend. So I change this from shared to my friend. What happens is inside here, you see that this tag is to only my friend. So in the leaderboard, your avatar is back at 175 and back at 0 gold, and this is 25 and 50. What you can also do inside your task is you can assign this tag to one more person. So I can assign this to your avatar and MF. So I have both of them in here. When I have both of them in here, this becomes like this. So now again, I have the exact same thing as I shared before, except that I'm controlling who it's assigned to inside the task level instead of on the tags level, instead of in the system level. So I'm sure you'll rewatch this again to understand this better, but essentially what I'm just showing you here is how can I manipulate the gamification tags to assign points to more than just one person. And when you want to add new players to your system, there are 2 ways that you can do it. The first way is you can decide to use the same success plan, which I know that Alyssa and Nadine are doing. They're using the same success plan. So all they have to do is just add the different tags depending on who the win should be assigned to. And then that will essentially ensure that they get the level up and the XP rewards and gold rewards for the right person. The next thing you can do is you can duplicate all of the different tables that currently roll up and bring relates into and bring information into this gamification tags. So right now we can see that success plan is bringing information in. We can also see that daily quest is bringing information in. We can tell that it's that because of these arrows. So what I want to show you is that what happens is you can actually have similar relations for different success plans that don't live inside your system, right? If you duplicate only the success plan in the daily quest for a friend, for example, then they can have their own set of daily quests and success plans that come into gamification tags and give you the rewards that you need for your main system, right? To essentially roll up it all inside this leaderboard. So I'll show you how that works quickly. And again, I'll probably have a better resource coming up and a proper guide to do this. But the really easy way for you to think about it is just, hey, if I go into the system, right? And I can see that these are all the databases that I have. I just need to duplicate all the databases aside from the gamification ones, gamification databases here, so that everybody can have their own copy of their success plan, of their daily quests, of their weekly reviews, of their monthly reviews, quarterly reviews, and everything that they have there, so that essentially you have an opportunity to have your own siloed data sets, data information. Again, I mentioned earlier when we were talking about the theory, it's really important to make good decisions based on the data that you have, and then essentially make it so that they all lead up to one source of truth, which is the gamification tags. So so let's show you a bit about how to do that. I think it is important, but basically the whole idea is that I would essentially move all these databases into a page together with all of the build your own system tutorials, because it's good to have a tutorial to teach people how to use the system and have the dashboards. Again, you don't have to if you don't mind them not having the system. The easiest way to do it, if you don't mind that, is just simply duplicating everything. So let me just do it now just to show you guys. I might as well. So I'm going to move this gamification databases on this side. Okay, perfect. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I can see more things. But basically all you have to do is just take this whole thing like this. And I just want to make sure I'm on my demo site so I don't, okay, yeah, perfect. So you take this whole thing, you right click and then you click duplicate, right? But before you do that, what a good way to do it is, actually, I think the best way to do it is like this. Sorry, let me just show you a better way. Just take all this, take all the gamification databases, move it out of this system, and then what we want to do is just duplicate this instead. So this duplicates everything inside the system and gives you another copy of all your different success plans, your daily quests, quarterly reviews, everything you like, and it'll take some time. And the reason why we want to duplicate everything at once is to ensure that you are able to have everything stay connected. So if you don't do this at one time, if you duplicate them one at a time instead, then the dashboard won't know that it should be linking to the new success plan rather than the one that's inside your system currently. I'll explain this more again later on if you'd like, but this is the more technical part of today's lesson, and the more, I guess, just answering the question of how would you add a friend into your system. So just to show you, just to prove that it worked, right now if I go into my Make Life Simple and I change this daily quest, let's say, to MF daily quest, so I add MF in front of it, what will happen is if I go back into the Make Life Simple for player 1, so you probably want to rename the system to player 1, this daily quest doesn't change. You've essentially created a new duplicate of everything inside your system for your friend to come and play. And then what you can do inside gamification tags instead, so now we have this 25 minutes task MF, instead of having that link from your Y success plan, you want it to link from your success plan from MF. So what we want to do here to show you how that works, we have this daily quest here. That's awesome. So I'm going to move that up into this section, MF daily quest. So you can see that it's MF daily quest. Another thing you can do here is to double check this section here as well. So we have success plan here, and then we have this success plan, and then we have this success plan here. So let's go to Make Life Simple. Let's go down to this section. Again, I just want to make sure that we are working on it properly. So we're going to the section, our preferred view, success plan. Let's call it MF as well. So what will happen here is I need to make sure that I have a relation. So let's go into here and just see any of these items. So I should have a relation into gamification tags. Awesome. And then what I should see is I'm also able to have a related to success plan. Yeah, but basically that's what you do. And then when you have that information in here, for some reason it's not popping up right now, but I'll investigate that later. But basically what you do is when you have a related to daily quest, all you can do is just roll up the information exactly as you would roll up it in here. And then you assign this to my friend, this tags to my friend. And then this works just like you would expect, and you would have your gamification system set up for a friend as well. Again, I'll have a proper guide later on if you'd like. But what I want to really show you is how can you gamify any system that you like? And that builds upon the 5 key rules that we talked about before. And this is going to be the last thing we talk about, and I'll open up for questions. I know this kind of went on a tangent, but hopefully that made sense to people who understand this. And again, you can ask more questions later if you'd like. But essentially what I want to do here is I want to show you, let's say I pick up any system in the backend, and maybe for what was shared for Shannon, I want to show, for example, if I had my knowledge hub, how do I gamify my knowledge hub? What are the principles that I can apply that make gamifying my knowledge hub easy and simple, and make it really engaging for me to continuously want to build more and read more, right? So the first thing we can do is we can make it so that whenever you finish a book, you end up having a success. So what we do to make that happen is we add a new property. We call this one a relation, and it's going to relate over to our gamification tags. And I want to make sure that I have it proper. So let's go gamification tags. Let's call this one, this is our demo. So we're going to relate this to our demo gamification tags. So relation, we're going to call this one our demo gamification tags. We have that right there. Perfect. So then we can also say like, hey, you know, this is a big win, huge win, or maybe you can call it a book win, right? You can make this a different kind of win. It's entirely up to you. So let's imagine we made it a different kind of win. Okay, let's call this a book win. So call this a book win. So we read a new book. And then maybe every time we read a book, we want to gain 150 experience points. Maybe we want to also get some gold, 50 gold perhaps, and it gives gold. And we want it to be attributed to your avatar, of course. So that's that. And then what I want to do here now is I want to go ahead and go back to my knowledge hub. And I want to add a few properties, okay? So let's add tags here. I'm also going to add something called, should we do difficulty? Let's add difficulty. So let me explain to you a little bit of how of where the information is going to be rolling up from. Okay. So right now, if you go to success plan, you see that I actually roll up two pieces of information. I want to see the multiplier and I want to see this difficulty number. And generally the multiplier is there because we might have a difference in terms of how much experience and gold I actually want to earn, depending on how early or late it is for me to finish this task or finish this project, right? Or finish this goal or key result. When you're talking about books, you might not have any multipliers on that. But what's important here, at least though, is I would still add in the multiplier just to make sure that the information is being passed properly. So let's go multiplier. And let's go here with difficulty. And what we're going to do is we're going to make these into formulas because we don't need to edit these so much. Again, you can make them into numbers if you'd like, but for now, because I don't see a difference, they're all gonna be ones anyways. I'm just going to make sure that they're all ones and keep it like that. So what happens here is, let's say I finish this book, right? Let's say I finish this book, I had a book win and I handed it in to be finished. So what happens is I want this to tell gamification tags to give me a reward, right? So I'm going to here, there's a book win here. I'm going to move it into this section and we're going to say YA knowledge hub. And I'm going to duplicate these two roll-ups, okay? So I'm going to duplicate roll-up right here, drag it down, and I'm going to duplicate this roll up. And then what we're going to call this is YA knowledge hub EXP multiplier. And then this one becomes YA knowledge hub difficulty. And what we can do is we can go into our knowledge hub. We can find our multiplier, and we can sum the information, sum. And then over here, we can go into our Y knowledge hub. We can go into multiplier. Or this is difficulty number, difficulty. And then we can also sum this. And I guess, actually, maybe we just make this we just keep it at difficulty if we don't have a multiplier. But I just wanted to show you like it's the exact same thing across all of them, just to keep it consistent in case you do have all those differences in the system that you want to build. But anyway, so what happens is that we're showing these ones, right? So what we can do now is inside total EXP, we can now also add those as modifiers. So again, it's really easy. You don't have to worry too much. It does look a bit complex, but I guarantee you it's very, very simple, okay? So we're going to go into here. We're going to find this YA daily quest, EXP multiplier, and also the EXP multiplier right here. So I'm just going to take this and then I'm going to copy that section. I'm going to paste it. And instead of success plan multiplier, I'm going to call this one knowledge hub multiplier, right? And then that works. So now my EXP is being updated. My book win is currently giving me 150 gold EXP. And then I'm going to add one more here. That's going to give me a section. So I'm going to take I'm going to take this section and I see that there is a difficulty gold bounty right here, daily quest. Okay, I need to rename this better. Okay, no, it's perfect. Okay, so I can see the gold one. And then I'm just going to add here as well, right after YA daily quest. And I'm going to add this one, and this one becomes Knowledge Hub. Okay, and then now immediately I'm able to earn gold and experience points from my book wins inside the system. And maybe we'll add like a book here if you'd like, add a book. So let me show you, okay? So right now on my leaderboard, it's showing that your avatar is 350 experience points and 100 gold, okay? If I go and find another book to finish, let's say I finished Give and Take by Adam Grant, awesome book, I finished that. Immediately I go back into my system and I can see that, let's let it load for a second. Oh wait, not done yet, sorry. I need to add a tag. So one step, add a tag for a book win, and then add a tag for a book win. So make sure so the system knows that they're connected. And then I say finished, and that's when I can go to my leaderboard and I'm at 500 EXP and 150 gold, and I just leveled up. So it's as simple as that. Really, that's how you would do it to add that level of gamification to any system that you'd like. And again, just to make sure I reach upon those points, there are more things that you can do to make sure that this works. So let's go through the rules step by step again, shall we? And then we can make sure that we're acting in accordance to what we're talking about earlier. So rule number one was celebrate your wins, which is what we just built, right? Now, every single database, now that you know the skill, any single database you go into you can celebrate your wins. You're now being data driven, so you know when you finish, last finished your task, you finished your books, whatever you'd like. You're being data driven in this regard. You're also putting down your key takeaways, so this is good. You're tracking your stats, and ideally at some point in the future you're able to look back on your stats and really see like, hey, this is how I've been progressing. I read this many books a day. I usually read books on Sundays. I read books on Fridays. I'm most productive on these times. Like, these are all information that you can garner from the use of your system. Next is to reward consistency, right? So how you reward consistency, how I would suggest you reward consistency is you can go to your daily quest, right? If you go to your daily quest, and let me just bring that up quickly. If you go to your daily quest, you can essentially be able to add in a new entry that says, hey, every day that I go ahead and I make sure that so let me just open this up. So every day that I go in and check off, perhaps I have a property would be like read, right? I do actually personal development. I check it off, I move forward in progress. And I also, if I go back to the leaderboard, I'll also earn golden experience points. So let's make that happen. 525, 150. So on top of celebrating the book when it's finished, I'm also rewarding consistency for catching up and making sure that I'm having a daily reading routine. Again, it could be daily, it could be weekly, whatever you'd like, but just make sure that you are also rewarding consistency in that regard. Writing a story is interesting. Writing a story in this regard is something that's, I think it's better done with something that has a bigger progression, which means that a task can easily have a storyline that leads towards a project I'm working on, and the project has a storyline for a key result that I'm working on, and the key result can have a story of a goal that I'm on, right? And you can think of it as like almost the scaffolding for you to break down something very complex, some big, wide, grandiose goal, and make sure that it's something that you can break down into actionable steps to do. But for the example that we were on just now, like Knowledge Hub, reading a book, I'm not so certain, well, I guess you could have the story of like, hey, you know, I'm gathering this pieces of knowledge to then build up my experience in this sector or this part of my life, and therefore I'm going to be that much better in, you know, improving myself in that vector because I've done my research. That could be something interesting, right? So instead, you can think of it as like it's one of your quests to become more proficient at the work you're doing by researching the things that you should be doing. Great. And then the last thing is embrace multiplayer. And this is where I think having a leaderboard is so cool. right? And having a chance to see all the wins that your friends are currently working on, all the wins that everyone around you is essentially embarking on. And this is the way that I think, you know, we can live our best life, right? Making sure that we are not doing everything in silo. If I'm finishing a really cool book and it gets broadcasted to the community, awesome. Other people can also read it too. They can find out what was good about the book that I enjoyed about it, right? When I finish a task, everyone can find out what task I finished, and everyone can then, maybe they can learn from it. They can ask, hey, I also wanted to do that too. I also wanted to accomplish that in my life. How did you do it? And I can explain that. And through teaching, I can also learn something new. And everyone has this opportunity to teach and to learn from others. And again, as mentioned earlier in the class, you know, we have, no matter how mundane something feels, no matter how boring something feels, there's always someone that will benefit from that sharing. So the best thing you can do is start. Awesome. So there's a lot that's been shared today, I know, from everything from the theory of gamification, how other organizations and corporations are essentially stealing away our attention, right? Stealing our data, how we can place actionable steps in our day-to-day life, even without the use of a system. What are the rules we keep in mind to ensure that we're continuously building up our knowledge or building up our mindsets to make work fun and hopefully get more things done. And on this step, we taught you how to use our Notion system and how you can build gamification into any system you like with the base foundation that we've created for you already. And of course, in the near future, we're also going to be having an app that you can just tie into that should be able to automatically gamify any database that you like. So I'm open for questions now. Of course, for the first 5-10 minutes, I'd like to keep the questions relevant to what we've shared today. And then after that, I'm open for questions outside, gamification related questions outside of what I've shared today that you think are worthwhile topics to ask about. And if you have questions, again, hit the hand button in the bottom left of your window and I'll get to you from there. Anne is the first hand to go up. Anne, all yours.
Hi, thanks. I was just curious if you could do this last portion when you're working with formulas and, you know, right from the point of, you know, doing the right click duplicate of, you know, the systems. I'd like to see it in a video and make it short and sweet. But, you know, for me, the screen wasn't very clear. And so I was losing some of the information and I want to gain that back. So if you'd consider that.
Of course. I think I'll probably record another session for that because I know that recording it through here isn't necessarily very clear, and maybe the recording will also help you, like the recording of this call will help you. But definitely, I plan to have a more clear and concise guide on how to do that. But I just wanted to prove and show to you guys it's very, very simple with the foundation that we have, just linking new databases in to gamify them. It's something that I think is something that's very fun and very easy to do. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, because it's really exciting.
Of course, yes. Christian, all yours.
Yeah, I'm very curious about what other ideas you have regarding writing your own story, because some of the ideas I've already heard and were better explained by you, so I'm very curious. But mostly the writing your own story, I'm like, what can I do with that? How can I do that for my own life?
Awesome. Okay, let's talk a bit about that. Like, so I want you guys to imagine like your childhood just for a second, right? And something about our childhood. So one of my housemates, he has two sons. One of his sons came over the other day and just to hang out. And I thought it was really interesting. So he's like a 6-year-old kid, right? 6-year-old child. And almost everything had a narrative to it. And let me explain what I mean. Like, he could be doing anything mundane. He could be like just walking up the stairs, right? Or finishing a meal. And he could have like oodles of story about it. He'll just keep that producing ideas and sentences about what he's doing right now. Oh, you know, I'm going up the stairs, you know, I'm going to go do that, and I'm going to do that, and then that's gonna make my, and that's gonna do this, and that's gonna have that effects. And essentially they've made everything into a very beautiful story because they're trying to explain to themselves why they're doing what they're doing. And if they don't understand why other people are doing what they're doing, they always ask why, right? Kids always ask why. And what I'm talking about in terms of a storyline here is, what are the why questions you can ask for everything you're doing? So let's use the example of the knowledge hub, because I don't think I explained that one very nicely. I wasn't prepared on that one, right? It was just something off the top of my head. But let's say the knowledge hub, and I say, okay, why am I reading this book right now? Let's say there's a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck, one of the best books I ever recommend to people. Why am I reading this? Well, because I feel like I want a growth mindset. Why do I want a growth mindset? Well, because I want to feel like I can accomplish things I set my mind out to. Why do I want to accomplish things I set my mind out to? Because I think that's what I'm meant to do. That's something that I want to, I feel like I should be able to accomplish things. Why do you feel like you should be able to accomplish things? Well, because my purpose in life is to, progress, right? Have growth and move forward. Why is that your purpose in life? And like, okay, it can go on, right? But there's a cool mental model, and this is like 20 questions, like 20 whys. But essentially, from that why questioning, I can be like, oh, okay, well, I'm reading this book Mindset because I'm on an epic quest to determine that I can accomplish things that I put my mind out to. And that epic quest is preceded by my desire to contribute to the world, perhaps, by adding to my knowledge, adding to my own library. I imagine myself as a castle, right? Adding to my own library of information and making sure I'm knowledgeable on that. And maybe I want to do that because I want to share it with the world in some day, right? I want to summarize it and share it to the world in some easily, concise, digestible manner. So when you ask the why questions, you actually get your fundamental reasons of why you're doing something. And it's through those reasons that I hope that you can essentially build an understanding with yourself that this is your storyline of why you're doing this thing, and using that storyline you can make it exciting. Just add extra sparkly words like it's an epic quest, I'm on this, I'm gonna slay that dragon, I'm going to whatever works for you, really. And like I said, if you're into thrillers, if you're into hero protagonist storylines, if you're into anything you'd like, just gear your story around that. But always start with why. Ask why questions, and then you'll get to your true motivations, and that should be the foundation of the story you're telling yourself. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yep, thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions? I saw that Alyssa had a question. It was about the technical side. Alyssa, do you want to repeat that on voice? Or anyone else can also
I'm sorry. Hi. Hello.
Hi.
My dog is having a tantrum. I saw that you'd mentioned something about like roll-ups with someone who's not using the same system as you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can share info. I don't know if you meant like if it has to be like in the same Notion like workspace, if that makes sense to you. But
yes.
Okay. Makes sense.
So the answer is that you do need it to be in the same workspace, unfortunately. Otherwise I found that the relations don't actually read the information. So they have to be in the same workspace. You have a shared workspace. But like I showed you, all they have to do is to have a tags relation, a property for multiplier, a property for difficulty number, and then also have a status complete, right, to signify when something is complete. And then you can gamify anything you like. So all they need to do is have those few properties inside any database that they want, if they aren't using our current systems. But of course, if we're just duplicating our current systems, the success plan and daily quest, I'll automatically have gamification built in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because like I know that you've been working on like the whole announcement of other people's characters, and I'm super excited for that because it's kind of like being in the same workspace but not being able to see someone who's not like me and Nadine were like attached to the hip in our systems, and seeing everyone's progress. So yeah, that was all my things. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Actually, something to show you guys, and we'll be wrapping this up in the next 3-5 minutes, but something to show you guys because I'm very excited by it. And so this is the application that we're developing now. So I built this over the course of the last 2 days, I think. But basically, the idea is that this is a application on the web that will essentially pull your information from Notion. It'll show you like things like your level, how much you progressed since last week or whatever. We're still deciding on what's like analytics to make here, but basically like you can see like really cool analytics, like trends of like how many tasks you're finishing every single day, how much experience points you earn on average per day, per month, whatever. You can see a leaderboard. I haven't built this one yet, but you'll be able to see a leaderboard of everyone else in the community if they choose to share. So it'll be opt-in, obviously. It won't be anything. So you can use it for yourself if you like, just to visualize your own data. And I'll be continuously building more use cases to show more trends depending on what you guys want. And I just want to make it very clear, I'm building for you guys. Everybody in this call and everybody who's going to be an active patron in the future as well will get this for free, at least until I launch. After I launch, I may make that into another different plan altogether. But for now, everybody who is currently in our patron list will be grandfathered into this. So essentially, the whole idea is I'm going to be building this for you guys to bring out any kind of insights that are important to you, that you feel like are going to help you drive towards the progress in the future that you want. So recent wins is definitely something I want to show. And, I'll probably have a button here that says share to Gilded after. So again, this is all your local space. Once you have your local space and you click share to Gilded, then it will share to a global space for everybody to enjoy, or the leaderboard. But I'm happy to get any questions on this actually right now, because this relates very well with what I just talked about, and I'm curious as well. And also, I'm looking to make like an item shop where you can customize your own avatar. You can twirl them around. They can stare at your mouse or something. I don't know, some fun things like that. Cool. Shannon also asked an unrelated question. I will answer that after I end the recording for this. Okay, Shannon? I'll answer that question after. Well, if nobody else has anything else they want to share, I will be sending out the copy of the... Oh, Alyssa, go ahead.
Could you explain what you meant with like the avatars bouncing around again?
Oh no, that's just a fun thing. Like I wanted to make it so you can have a customizable avatar, and then basically I can make it so that it can like stare at your cursor as you move around, like just make it more interactive. Like how like in Animal Crossing, as an example, the character can move around, you can touch them and then they'll like move and stuff, they'll squirm.
Yeah, I mean, like I think because like one of my big struggles for like gamification, like not with like the leaderboard, is like the pets, because like I never feel like I'm not interacting enough with the pets. If it's called a pet, I want to be able to have them as a pet.
Sure.
But it's kind of like they don't do anything other than sleep. But to be honest, that's kind of what pets do as well. That makes sense. But I don't know. It maybe in the future, later when this app is like all cool and stuff, you can do something with pets and like just something like small that they, do anything.
Yeah, very excited about that. For sure. And so it'll be an open collaborative build. I'm even thinking of like open sourcing it for everyone to work with together. So I know definitely people like Joshua will be very interesting. And so you can upload an image for sure. The only question is, if I upload an image, I don't know if I should make it so that you only can upload 3D models, because I do want eventually to have like a 3D kind of effect and everything. But we'll talk more about that on the technical end, Joshua. I'm sure there's lots to talk about here. But this is for people who are curious, this is built on Nix.js and on PostgreSQL database, if anyone knows or cares for that. I think only Joshua and Christian perhaps. Anyway, that's it from me for today. Thank you again so much for joining this masterclass. I hope you learned lots. Really had a fun time talking about all the things that were shared today. As mentioned, I will give you guys access to the early draft of the new gamification book that I'm writing. Again, it will only be on the chapters discussed today. I think that's chapter 1 and 2. So definitely take a look at that. Give me your feedback, because the editing process is going to be immensely tough and exciting, and ideally data based, based on what you guys want to hear and based on what you guys want to learn, what worked for you guys. Aside from that, thank you guys so much. People who have follow-up questions that are unrelated, stay in to ask me. But for now, I'm going to stop the recording here. Thank you guys, and have a wonderful rest of your evening or day, wherever time zone you're in.